The penthouse was quiet in the way only expensive places could be, thick windows muting the endless hum of Seoul, soft lighting casting long shadows across marble floors. Han Ji-eun sat at the dining table in a crisp white blouse and tailored trousers, her dark hair pulled into a neat, low bun. A single desk lamp illuminated the stack of documents in front of her. Her fountain pen hovered over the final signature line. Petitioner Han Ji-eun, respondent Park Soo-ah. 3 years of marriage condensed into cold legal language. Ji-eun's hand trembled only slightly as she pressed the pen down and signed. The ink flowed smoothly, final. She exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding for months. Free, she whispered to the empty room. The word tasted strange on her tongue, bittersweet, almost hollow. She leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes. Memories she had tried so hard to box away came flooding in uninvited. 2.5 years earlier, the charity gala had been loud with crystal clinking and orchestral music. Ji-eun, then a rising star at her law firm, had attended only because her boss insisted. She was adjusting the strap of her deep emerald evening gown when a warm, confident voice cut through the noise. "Excuse me, you look like you'd rather be reviewing contracts than smiling for cameras." Ji-eun turned and met the most striking eyes she'd ever seen, dark, playful, framed by perfectly arched brows. Park Soo-ah stood there in a custom black gown that screamed quiet luxury, her long hair cascading over one shoulder like ink on silk. The heiress to the Park Group. Everyone knew the name, but few knew the woman behind the headlines. "I could say the same about you," Ji-eun replied, surprised at her own boldness. Soo-ah laughed, low and melodic. "Then let's escape." That night became stolen conversations on a secluded balcony, shared laughter under string lights, and the kind of instant chemistry Ji-eun had never believed in. Within weeks, secret dates turned into weekend getaways. Within months, a quiet courthouse wedding. Soo-ah in a simple white suit, Ji-eun in a soft dress, both of them giddy and terrified and so in love it hurt. The honeymoon in Santorini had been pure magic. Mornings tangled in white sheets, Soo-ah's fingers tracing lazy patterns on Ji-eun's bare back as the Aegean Sea sparkled beyond the terrace. "You're my safe place," Soo-ah had whispered against her skin. "The only person who sees me, not the last name." Ji-eun had believed her. Back in the present, Ji-eun opened her eyes and stared at the signed papers. That safe place had slowly become a pressure cooker. Late nights, boardroom obligations, Soo-ah's family treating their marriage like a strategic alliance rather than a love story. The arguments that grew colder, the distance that widened until Ji-eun felt invisible even when they shared the same bed. She stood up, papers in hand, and walked toward her briefcase. Freedom was finally here. Her phone rang sharply on the table, shattering the silence. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something, instinct perhaps, made her answer. "Ms. Han Ji-eun," a calm but urgent female voice. "This is Seoul National University Hospital. Park Soo-ah was brought in after a serious car accident. She was on her way to a board meeting. You're listed as her emergency contact and spouse. We need you here immediately." The papers slipped from Ji-eun's fingers, scattering across the floor. Time slowed. She grabbed her coat and keys without thinking, heart hammering against her ribs. The elevator ride down felt endless. In the car, Seoul's neon lights blurred past as rain began to patter against the windshield. Her mind spun in chaotic circles. She's hurt. She might be. You were almost free. Guilt twisted sharply with something else, something raw and painful she didn't want to name. Relief? Fear? A part of her that still cared too much? The hospital emergency wing was a controlled chaos of beeping machines and hurried footsteps. A doctor in scrubs met her at the desk. "Ms. Han, your wife is stable for now, but it was a bad crash, multiple fractures, head trauma. She's unconscious. We're monitoring for swelling. You should prepare yourself. Partial amnesia is common in cases like this, especially with the impact she sustained." Ji-eun nodded numbly. "Can I see her?" They led her down a corridor to the ICU. The room smelled of antiseptic. Machines hummed steadily beside the bed. Park Soo-ah lay there, pale against the white sheets. Bruises bloomed across her cheek and temple. Bandages wrapped her head and one arm. Tubes and wires connected her to monitors that tracked every fragile heartbeat. Ji-eun's breath caught. She stepped closer, almost involuntarily, and gently took Su-ah's uninjured hand. It felt smaller than she remembered, fragile. The woman who had once swept her off her feet, who had made her believe in forever, now looked so breakable. Ji-eun's thumb brushed lightly over Su-ah's knuckles, the same motion she used to do during their quiet mornings together. "I signed the papers tonight," she whispered, voice cracking. "I was supposed to be free of you." A single tear slipped down Ji-eun's cheek and landed on the edge of the hospital bed. Su-ah didn't stir. The ICU room felt smaller with every passing hour. Ji-eun had refused to leave, even when the nurses gently suggested she go home and rest. She sat in the stiff chair beside the bed, still wearing the same white blouse from the night before, now wrinkled. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep, but she couldn't look away from Su-ah's face. Machines beeped in steady rhythm. Outside the window, Seoul's morning light filtered through half-closed blinds, casting soft stripes across the sterile sheets. Ji-eun held Su-ah's hand again, thumb tracing absent circles, the habit she thought she had broken. Just come back, she thought, even if it's only to say goodbye properly. A faint twitch, then another. Su-ah's eyelids fluttered, once, twice, and then they opened. Dark, familiar eyes, still a little unfocused, landed on Ji-eun. For a long second there was only confusion, then recognition bloomed across Su-ah's bruised face like sunlight breaking through clouds. Her lips curved into the softest, most genuine smile Ji-eun had seen in years. Ji-eun-ni. The voice was raspy, weak, but warm, so painfully warm. "You're here." Ji-eun's heart stuttered. She leaned forward, careful not to jostle any wires. "Hey, easy. You're in the hospital. There was an accident." Su-ah blinked slowly, processing. She tried to lift her bandaged arm and winced. "Accident? I don't remember driving." Her gaze drifted over Ji-eun's face, drinking her in as if she were the most precious thing in the room. "But I remember you. You look tired, love. Have you been here all night?" The endearment, love, hit Ji-eun like a physical blow. It was the same one Su-ah had used during their first year, when everything was new and gentle and full of wonder. "I'm okay," Ji-eun managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "The doctors said you're stable. You have some fractures and a concussion. They're keeping you for observation." Su-ah's smile didn't fade. If anything, it deepened, even through the pain. She squeezed Ji-eun's hand with surprising strength. "As long as you're here, I can handle it." Her eyes softened further. "How long was I out? Did I miss our anniversary plans? I wanted to take you back to that little hanok in Gyeongju, the one with the private garden where we stayed that first spring." Ji-eun froze. Their anniversary had been 2 months ago. They had spent it in icy silence. Su-ah at a family gala, Ji-eun working late on purpose. The Gyeongju trip had been their honeymoon extension, back when laughter came easily and touches lingered for hours. The room seemed to tilt. Ji-eun searched Su-ah's face for any sign of the later years, the arguments, the distance, the exhaustion. There was none, only pure, unfiltered affection. The version of Su-ah who had once kissed her awake every morning and whispered silly promises against her neck. You were only out for a day," Ji-eun said carefully. The lie by omission tasted bitter. She brushed a strand of hair from Su-ah's forehead, the motion automatic, intimate. "Don't worry about the plans right now. Just focus on getting better." Su-ah let out a small, relieved sigh and turned her face into Ji-eun's touch like a cat seeking warmth. "Good. I hate missing things with you." Her voice grew quieter, drowsy from the pain medication. "I had the strangest dream while I was sleeping. We were in Santorini again. You were laughing in that white dress and I couldn't stop kissing you. Feels like it was just yesterday." Ji-eun's throat tightened painfully. She remembered that morning too, the salt air, the way Su-ah's bare skin had felt against hers, the certainty that this was forever. A doctor entered quietly, checking monitors. "Mrs. Park is showing good responsiveness. That's encouraging. With head trauma like this, we often see selective memory loss. Usually recent events are the most fragile. She may need time and low stress to recover fully. It's best not to overwhelm her right now." Ji-eun nodded, but her mind was screaming. Tell her now." Instead, she stayed silent as the doctor left. Su-A's eyes were already drifting shut again, but her fingers remained laced with Ji-eun's. "Stay with me?" Su-Ah murmured, half asleep. "I'm here," Ji-eun whispered. Later that afternoon, Ji-eun stepped out into the hospital corridor to make a call. The sterile lights buzzed overhead. She leaned against the wall, phone pressed to her ear. "Minji?" Her best friend's voice answered on the second ring. "It's me. Ji-eun, what's going on? You sound wrecked." "Su-A's in the hospital. Car accident. She's awake, but—" Ji-eun swallowed hard. She only remembers the early days, the good ones, our honeymoon, the secret dates, the way we used to be. She thinks we're still happy. There was a long pause on the other end. "Fuck. And you haven't told her about the divorce papers." Ji-eun closed her eyes. "The doctor said stress could make things worse. I couldn't do it. Not when she looked at me like that, like I was still her whole world." Minji sighed. "Ji-eun, you were finally free. Don't let this pull you back in. You need to tell her, soon." "I will," Ji-eun said, but the words felt heavy. "When she's stronger, just not today." She ended the call and pressed her forehead against the cool wall. Through the small window in the door, she could see Su-Ah sleeping peacefully, a faint smile still playing on her lips. Ji-eun's heart ached with a confusing mix of old love and fresh guilt. She slipped back into the room, pulled the chair closer to the bed and gently rested her head beside Su-Ah's hand. For now, she would stay. 3 days later, the doctors finally cleared Su-Ah for discharge with strict instructions. Rest, minimal stress, familiar surroundings, and regular checkups. No work, no board meetings, no pressure. Ji-eun stood in the hospital hallway signing the release forms, her signature far less certain than the one she had placed on the divorce papers just nights earlier. The doctor's words echoed in her head. Low stimulation is key. Surrounding her with positive, familiar elements will help her recovery. Any sudden emotional shocks could complicate things. She had nodded, throat tight, and made the decision. The drive back to their penthouse was quiet. Su-Ah sat in the passenger seat, still moving carefully because of the fractures in her ribs and left arm. She wore soft loungewear the hospital had provided, her head resting against the window as Seoul's skyline blurred past. Every few minutes she would glance over at Ji-eun and smile, like she couldn't quite believe she was really there. "You've been so quiet, Jagiya," Su-Ah said softly as they pulled into the private underground parking of their building. "Is everything okay? Did the doctors say something you're not telling me?" Ji-eun forced a gentle smile, one hand briefly leaving the wheel to squeeze Su-Ah's knee. "I'm just tired and worried about you. Let's get you home and settled." Home, the word felt loaded as the elevator rose smoothly to the top floor. When the doors opened directly into the sprawling penthouse, Su-Ah's face lit up with pure, childlike joy. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the Han River glittering under the afternoon sun. Everything was exactly as they had left it, minimalist luxury with warm touches Su-Ah had chosen. Plush cream sofas, abstract art on the walls, and fresh flowers on the console table that the housekeeper must have replaced. "I missed this," Su-Ah breathed, stepping inside slowly. She touched the back of the sofa as if greeting an old friend. "Our little castle in the sky." Ji-eun's chest tightened. "Our castle." She set down Su-Ah's small bag and watched as the other woman moved through the space with careful delight, tracing fingers over photo frames on the shelves. Most of them were from their early days, the two of them laughing at a beach in Jeju, kissing under cherry blossoms, Su-Ah feeding Ji-eun a strawberry during a picnic. "Look at us," Su-Ah said with a soft laugh that sent warmth blooming through Ji-eun despite herself. "We look so happy. We are happy, aren't we?" Ji-eun swallowed. "Yeah, we are." She escaped to the kitchen under the pretense of making dinner, samgyetang, Su-Ah's favorite comfort food. The familiar motions of stuffing the young chicken with rice and ginseng, simmering the broth, grounded her somewhat. But every time Su-Ah wandered in, leaning against the counter with that adoring gaze, Ji-eun felt the old pull. The way Su-Ah's eyes crinkled when she laughed at Ji-eun's clumsy attempt to taste the broth, the gentle brush of fingers when Su-Ah reached for a glass of water, the familiar scent of her shampoo mixed with hospital antiseptic. It was dangerous how easily the old rhythms returned. After dinner, they moved to the bedroom. The king-sized bed with its silk sheets felt too big, too intimate. Ji-eun helped Soo-ah change into soft pajamas, careful around the bruises blooming across her torso. "You don't have to do everything for me," Soo-ah murmured, but she didn't pull away when Ji-eun's fingers lingered on her waist. "I want to," Ji-eun replied honestly. In this moment, it was true. When they finally lay down, Soo-ah turned onto her good side and reached for her. Her uninjured arm wrapped around Ji-eun's waist, pulling her closer with surprising strength. Their bodies fit together the way they always had, Soo-ah's head tucked beneath Ji-eun's chin, warm breath against her collarbone. "I missed you so much," Soo-ah whispered into the quiet dark. Her voice was thick with emotion. "Even when I was sleeping, it felt like something was missing. But now you're here, we're home." Ji-eun's arms came around her automatically. She pressed a kiss to the top of Soo-ah's head, breathing in the scent of her. For a moment, the weight of the lie lifted, replaced by something sweeter and far more terrifying. Longing. The kind she thought she had buried with those divorce papers. Soo-ah's breathing evened out into sleep, but Ji-eun lay awake for a long time. Later, when she was sure Soo-ah wouldn't wake, Ji-eun slipped out of bed. She found her bag in the walk-in closet and pulled out the folder. The divorce papers were still there, unsigned on Soo-ah's side. Ji-eun stared at them under the dim closet light, thumb brushing over her own signature. "What am I doing?" The guilt crashed over her like a wave. She tucked the papers deeper into the bag, hiding them behind a row of winter coats, as if burying them could make the situation disappear. She returned to bed and let Soo-ah pull her close again. In the darkness, Ji-eun allowed herself one quiet, selfish thought, just for a little while longer. The days began to settle into a gentle, deceptive rhythm. Mornings in the penthouse started slowly. Ji-eun would wake first, careful not to disturb Soo-ah's healing body. She would make coffee and watch the sunrise paint the Han River gold while her mind raced in circles. Then Soo-ah would stir, reach for her with a sleepy smile, and Ji-eun's resolve would soften all over again. Physical therapy started on the fourth day home. A private therapist came to the penthouse twice a week. Ji-eun sat on the edge of the living room sofa, pretending to work on her laptop while she actually watched every careful movement Soo-ah made, lifting her injured arm, balancing on one leg, wincing but never complaining. "You're doing so well," Ji-eun said after one particularly tough session, helping Soo-ah to the couch with a cold compress. Soo-ah leaned into her side, exhausted but glowing. "Only because you're cheering me on. Remember when I sprained my ankle during our honeymoon hike? You carried me the whole way back, even though I was being dramatic." Ji-eun chuckled despite herself. "You were very dramatic." Soo-ah's laughter was light and melodic, filling the high-ceilinged room. It made something warm bloom in Ji-eun's chest, the same feeling she used to chase in those early months. That afternoon, while Ji-eun tried to catch up on emails, Soo-ah disappeared into the study for a while. When she returned, she was holding a small bouquet of white lilies, Ji-eun's favorites, tied with a simple ribbon. "I had the housekeeper pick them up," Soo-ah said, a shy, proud smile on her face. "And I wrote you something." She handed over a cream-colored note card. "To my Ji-euni, even when everything else is blurry, you are clear. Thank you for taking care of me. I fall in love with you more every day. Forever yours, Soo-ah." Ji-eun read it twice, throat tight. The handwriting was the same elegant script she had once received on love letters slipped into her briefcase. She pulled Soo-ah into a careful hug, breathing in her scent. "They're beautiful," she whispered. "Thank you." Soo-ah nuzzled into her neck. "I want to do more of this. Recreate all our favorite things. No more letting work or family get in the way. Just us." The words were sweet, too sweet. At the law firm the next day, the illusion cracked. Ji-eun had gone in for a few critical meetings, leaving Soo-ah with a private nurse. Her colleagues noticed immediately. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," her mentor, attorney Kim, said during a coffee break. "And you turned down the lead on the new merger. That's not like you." Ji-eun stirred her coffee too vigorously. "Family emergency. My wife was in an accident." The older woman's expression softened. "Ah, the park heiress. Take all the time you need, but don't lose yourself in it. You've worked too hard to let personal matters derail your trajectory." Personal matters, as if her entire marriage could be reduced to that. That evening, Ji-eun returned home to another surprise. Sua had dimmed the lights and set up a small picnic on the living room floor, cushions, candles, and takeout from their favorite Italian place from their early dating days. I know it's not fancy, Sua said, biting her lip, but I wanted to do something nice. They ate cross-legged on the floor. Sua fed Ji-eun a bite of pasta, eyes sparkling with mischief. For a while, it felt real. Ji-eun let herself laugh, let herself lean in when Sua kissed her softly, tasting of red wine and longing. Later, as they lay in bed, the angst returned. Sua's head rested on Ji-eun's chest, fingers idly tracing patterns over her shirt. "Sometimes I get these little flashes," she murmured. "Arguments, raised voices, but then I see your face and they fade. You're my safe place, Ji-eun. You always have been." The words pierced straight through Ji-eun's heart. "Now. Tell her now." She opened her mouth. "Sua, there's something I need to—" But Sua lifted her head, eyes full of such open trust and love that the confession died in Ji-eun's throat. "Whatever it is, it can wait until I'm stronger, right?" Sua whispered, pressing a gentle kiss to Ji-eun's jaw. "I just want to enjoy this, us, the way we used to be." Ji-eun closed her eyes and held her tighter instead. "Yeah," she said hoarsely, "it can wait." As Sua drifted off, Ji-eun stared at the ceiling, memories of the darker times flooding in unbidden. Flashback, 18 months ago. The penthouse had felt cold then. Sua had come home from another endless Park family dinner, tension radiating off her. "They keep pushing about children," Sua had said, voice tight. "An air, public image, you know how they are." Ji-eun, exhausted from a 14-hour day at the firm, had snapped back. "And what about what we want? Or have I become just another strategic asset to the Park group?" The argument had escalated, voices raised, old wounds opened. Sua retreating behind her heiress armor, Ji-eun feeling more and more like a lonely wife in a golden cage. That night they had slept on opposite sides of the bed for the first time. Back in the present, Ji-eun gently kissed the top of Sua's head, careful not to wake her. The woman in her arms was both the love of her life and a stranger wearing her face, and Ji-eun was falling for her all over again, while drowning in the lie she had created. The Park family arrived on a crisp Thursday morning, like a carefully orchestrated storm. Ji-eun was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when the elevator chimed. Sua's mother, Chairwoman Park, swept in first, elegant in a tailored cream suit, followed by Sua's older brother and a personal assistant carrying flowers and gift baskets. The air in the penthouse shifted immediately, growing heavier with expectation. "Sua, my dear," Chairwoman Park said, embracing her daughter gently. Her sharp eyes flicked to Ji-eun. "And Ji-eun, thank you for taking such good care of her. The family is grateful." The words were polite, the underlying message was not. Remember your place, maintain the image. Sua lit up at seeing her family, but Ji-eun caught the slight tension in her shoulders. They settled in the living room. Conversation flowed around business updates, upcoming board votes, and subtle questions about Sua's recovery timeline. "You'll be back on your feet soon," her brother said with a confident smile. "The company needs its shining air, and of course, Ji-eun will support you every step of the way, won't you?" Ji-eun nodded, the perfect wife smile fixed on her face. "Of course." Under the table, Sua's hand found hers and squeezed gratefully. That small touch was the only thing keeping Ji-eun grounded. After the family left, with promises to return soon and thinly veiled reminders about public appearances, Sua turned to her with apologetic eyes. "I'm sorry about them. They're a lot." Ji-eun brushed a strand of hair behind Sua's ear. "It's okay. I knew what I was getting into." The words tasted ironic. To escape the lingering tension, Ji-eun suggested something spontaneous the next day. "The doctors said a short, calm trip might be good for you. What if we go to that hanok we loved? Just one night, low stress, fresh air." Sua's face brightened like the sun. "Really? You'd do that for me?" The traditional hanok was nestled in the mountains outside Seoul, just as beautiful as Ji-eun remembered. Wooden beams, paper screens, and a private courtyard garden with autumn leaves drifting lazily onto the stone paths. They arrived in the late afternoon. The crisp mountain air felt cleansing. Sua moved slowly but happily, exploring every corner. She insisted on helping as much as she could with the simple dinner prepared by the staff. grilled fish, fresh vegetables, and warm rice. Afterward, they sat on the wooden veranda wrapped in blankets, watching the stars emerge one by one. This feels like our first real trip together, Su-ah murmured, leaning her head on Ji-eun's shoulder, before everything got so loud. Ji-eun wrapped an arm around her. For the first time in weeks, the happiness felt almost untainted. She listened to Su-ah talk about silly dreams for their future, maybe a small vacation home, lazy weekends, growing old together. Ji-eun allowed herself to imagine it, to feel the warmth of Su-ah's body against hers, the steady beat of her heart. In the heated ondol floor of their room that night, they lay close. Su-ah initiated a slow, tender kiss that deepened gradually. Her good hand roamed gently over Ji-eun's side, respectful of boundaries but full of quiet longing. There was no rush, just rediscovery, soft touches, shared breaths, whispered names. When they finally pulled apart, foreheads resting together, Ji-eun felt tears prick at her eyes. She was genuinely happy in this moment, and the guilt of that happiness was crushing. The flicker came the next morning. They were packing to leave when Su-ah suddenly paused while folding a sweater, her brow furrowed. "I had the strangest dream last night," she said slowly. "We were here, but we were fighting. You were saying something about needing space, about papers. It felt so real, my chest hurt." Ji-eun's blood ran cold. She turned from the suitcase, trying to keep her voice steady. "It was just a nightmare, love. The accident probably stirred up old stresses. The doctor said that could happen." Su-ah searched her face for a long moment, then nodded, the tension easing. "You're right, it doesn't matter anyway. Whatever it was, we're okay now. Better than okay." She stepped forward and hugged Ji-eun tightly. "Thank you for this trip. I feel like I'm falling in love with you all over again." Ji-eun hugged her back, eyes squeezed shut. That evening, back in the penthouse, after Su-ah had gone to sleep, Ji-eun locked herself in the bathroom. She sat on the edge of the marble tub, hands covering her face as silent sobs shook her shoulders. The weight of every lie pressed down on her, the signed papers hidden in the closet, the loving words she couldn't fully return yet, the fear that this fragile happiness would shatter the moment truth came out. Tears slipped through her fingers and fell onto the cold floor. She cried for the woman she had almost left, for the woman she was still desperately in love with, and for the version of herself that no longer knew what was right. The days after the Hanok trip carried a new kind of warmth. Su-ah was regaining strength steadily. Her movements were smoother, her laughter easier, and something between them was shifting, deepening. The careful tenderness was slowly giving way to a hunger that had been dormant for too long. One evening, after a light dinner on the terrace, Su-ah took Ji-eun's hand and led her to the bedroom without a word. The city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a soft glow across the room. "I've been thinking about this," Su-ah whispered as she gently backed Ji-eun toward the bed. "About us, about how much I've missed touching you." Ji-eun's breath caught. "Su-ah, your injuries are healing." Su-ah's eyes were dark, full of intent and love. "I need you, not just the careful version, I need you." Their lips met slowly at first, soft, exploring, relearning, then deeper. Ji-eun's hands slid beneath the hem of Su-ah's silk top, careful around the fading bruises but unable to resist the warmth of her skin. Su-ah sighed into the kiss, fingers threading through Ji-eun's hair and tugging her closer. Clothes were shed with quiet reverence. Ji-eun kissed every inch of newly exposed skin, collarbone, the curve of Su-ah's breast, the fading mark on her ribs. Su-ah trembled beneath her, whispering her name like a prayer. They moved together with aching familiarity and fresh discovery. Hands and mouths rediscovered old paths and sensitive places that still drew the same gasps and shivers. Su-ah's good hand gripped Ji-eun's back as pleasure built, their bodies pressing close, breaths mingling. There was no rush, only emotion, love, longing, and a desperate kind of need that went far beyond the physical. When they finally came down together, tangled and flushed, Su-ah cupped Ji-eun's face with both hands, wincing only slightly at the movement, and looked into her eyes. "I love you," she said fiercely, "more than anything." In that moment, Ji-eun's walls crumbled completely. As she held Su-ah close, listening to her heartbeat slow, she admitted it to herself for the first time since the accident. She had never stopped loving her, not really. The next morning brought reality crashing back. Ji-eun's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. A major merger case her firm was handling had suddenly become entangled with Park Group subsidiaries. Her boss called her in for an emergency strategy meeting. "I need you on this, Ji-eun," he said firmly across the conference table. "You know the family dynamics better than anyone. Your personal connection could be an advantage here." She worked late that day, poring over contracts and financial reports that carried Soo-ah's family name on every other page. The irony was bitter. She was fighting to protect the very empire that had once driven a wedge between them. When she finally returned home well after dark, Soo-ah was waiting. Her best friend, Lee Hae-won, had come by earlier. Hae-won was one of the few people who knew the real state of their marriage before the accident. As Ji-eun walked in, Hae-won was just leaving, giving her a long, searching look at the door. "Take care of her," Hae-won said quietly, voice low enough that only Ji-eun could hear. "But be careful. She was really struggling before the crash. There were problems, big ones. Don't let the amnesia turn into something that hurts you both later." The words landed like ice in Ji-eun's stomach. Inside, Soo-ah greeted her with a warm hug and a kiss on the cheek, completely unaware. "You worked so late. Come sit, I made tea." Ji-eun forced a smile and let herself be pulled onto the couch, but Hae-won's warning echoed in her head even as Soo-ah curled into her side, happy and trusting. The old flames had reignited with breathtaking heat, but the lies were beginning to burn. The balance was becoming harder to maintain. Soo-ah's memory was slowly filling in more pieces, mostly the bright golden ones. She would suddenly recall small details from their early days, the exact way Ji-eun took her coffee during their secret dating months, the playlist they had made for long drives, the silly inside jokes about rival chaebol heirs. Each recollection came with a delighted laugh and a kiss pressed to Ji-eun's cheek or temple. But there were also fragments of unease. One afternoon, while Ji-eun was working from home at the dining table, Soo-ah wandered over holding her tablet, brow slightly furrowed. "I was looking through old photos and messages," Soo-ah said slowly. "Some of them feel off, like there are gaps. I keep getting this heavy feeling in my chest when I read certain texts." She showed Ji-eun the screen, a thread from over a year ago, short, clipped messages. "I'm working late again. Family dinner ran long. Don't wait up." Ji-eun's stomach dropped. She remembered that period vividly, the slow drift, the growing silence. "Sometimes relationships have rough patches," Ji-eun said carefully, taking the tablet and setting it aside. "But we're here now, that's what matters." Soo-ah searched her eyes for a moment, then nodded, accepting the explanation, for now. That evening, Ji-eun's mother called. She had been one of the few people who knew about the impending divorce before the accident. "Ji-eun, her mother said, voice heavy with concern. "How long are you going to keep this up? The poor girl deserves the truth. You deserve to be free if that's what you wanted. This guilt is eating you alive. I can hear it in your voice." Ji-eun stood on the balcony, phone pressed tightly to her ear while the city hummed far below. "I know, Mom, but every time I try, she looks at me like I'm her whole world again. Like the early days. I don't know how to break that." Her mother sighed. "Love shouldn't be built on lies, no matter how kind they seem." The call ended, but the words lingered. Later that night, they cooked together, simple kimchi jjigae and banchan. Soo-ah insisted on helping despite her still healing arm, humming happily as she chopped vegetables. Flour dusted her cheek. Ji-eun wiped it away with her thumb, and the simple gesture turned into a soft kiss that lingered. After dinner, they moved to the balcony with a bottle of wine. The night was clear. They lay on the wide outdoor lounger under a thick blanket, stargazing. Soo-ah's head rested on Ji-eun's chest, their legs tangled. "Do you remember when we used to do this all the time?" Soo-ah asked dreamily. "We'd talk about the future for hours, kids, traveling, growing old together. I still want that." Ji-eun's arms tightened around her. The genuine happiness in Soo-ah's voice made her heart ache with equal parts love and pain. In this moment, under the stars, it was easy to believe they could have it. The crack came the following morning. Ji-eun had stepped out for a quick run to clear her head. When she returned, she found Soo-ah sitting on the floor of the study, the tablet in her lap. Tears were silently streaming down her face as she scrolled through old emails. One in particular was open, a long message from Ji-eun written 8 months ago. I feel like I'm disappearing in this marriage. The constant family pressure, the late nights, the way we barely touch anymore. I don't know if I can keep doing this. I think we need to talk about separation. Sua looked up, eyes red and confused. Ji-eun, what is this? Ji-eun froze in the doorway, sweat from her run suddenly cold on her skin. Her mind raced for an explanation. It was during a rough time, she said, voice shaky. She knelt beside Sua and gently took the tablet. We had a big fight. Things were stressful with your family and my work, but we worked through it. That's why this second chance feels so precious. Sua searched her face desperately. It sounded so final, like you were really going to leave me. Ji-eun pulled her into her arms, holding her tight. I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. She comforted Sua until the tears stopped and she calmed down. But when Sua finally fell asleep in her arms on the couch that afternoon, Ji-eun slipped away to the bathroom again. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, exhausted eyes, pale face, and felt the guilt reach a new peak. The facade was cracking faster than she could repair it. Every sweet moment, every kiss, every I love you was now poisoned by the truth she was still too afraid to speak. She slid down the wall, buried her face in her knees, and let the silent tears come. How much longer could she keep this up before everything shattered? Sua had always been a romantic at heart. By the end of the second week home, she had thrown herself into planning with a quiet determination that both warmed and terrified Ji-eun. One morning, over coffee on the terrace, Sua slid a simple folder across the table. I know it might seem soon, she said, cheeks flushed with excitement, but I want to renew our vows. Just us, maybe a few close friends. Something small and meaningful. To celebrate beating the accident and starting fresh. Inside the folder were mood boards, venue ideas, and a handwritten list of things she remembered from their original quiet courthouse wedding, a private garden ceremony, white flowers, Ji-eun's favorite song playing softly in the background. Ji-eun stared at the pages, her heart pounding. Sua, are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything, Sua replied, reaching across the table to take her hand. These past weeks with you have reminded me why I fell in love with you in the first place. We're stronger now. I want the world to know it. Ji-eun forced a smile and nodded. Inside, she was screaming. That evening, she escaped to Minji's apartment. The moment her best friend opened the door, Ji-eun broke. She stepped inside and the tears came before she could stop them. I'm terrified, Minji, she choked out, sinking onto the couch. She's planning a vow renewal. She thinks we're happier than ever. Every time I look at her, I want to tell her everything. But then she says things like, you're my safe place, and I freeze. I'm so scared she'll hate me when she remembers, that she'll look at me and see only betrayal. Minji rubbed her back in slow circles. You're in too deep. The longer you wait, the worse it will be. But I also see it, Ji-eun. You still love her. Maybe this accident is giving you both a chance to actually fix what was broken. Ji-eun cried until her eyes were swollen. When she finally returned home, she felt raw and exhausted. Sua noticed immediately. She pulled Ji-eun into the bedroom without questions, sensing the heaviness. What started as gentle comfort quickly ignited into something deeper. Their kisses were urgent this time, born from Ji-eun's desperate need to feel something real amid the lies. Clothes fell away. Sua's hands explored with growing confidence, mapping Ji-eun's body as if committing it to memory all over again. Ji-eun responded with equal fervor, tasting the salt of sweat on Sua's skin, drawing out soft moans and whispered names that echoed in the quiet penthouse. They made love with passionate intensity, bodies moving together in perfect sync. In those moments, there were no secrets, only heat, love, and the overwhelming feeling of home. Sua came apart beneath her with Ji-eun's name on her lips, and Ji-eun followed soon after, clinging to her like a lifeline. Afterward, as they lay tangled in damp sheets, Sua traced lazy circles on Ji-eun's bare shoulder. I can't wait to stand in front of you again and promise forever, she whispered. This time it'll be even better. Ji-eun buried her face in Sua's neck, fighting back fresh tears. The passion they had just shared made the guilt sharper than ever. She almost said it then, the full truth, the divorce papers, everything. But the words stuck. Instead, she held Su'A tighter and whispered, "I love you." It was true, painfully, complicatedly true. The following day brought more pressure. A park group boardroom meeting required Su'A's attendance via video call, and she asked Ji-eun to sit beside her for support. Ji-eun played the role perfectly, supportive wife, composed and elegant, while Su'A's family subtly praised their strong marriage on the call. Inside, Ji-eun felt like she was fracturing. The vow renewal invitations had already been sent. The date was set for 2 weeks from now, and Ji-eun still hadn't found the courage to stop it. The weather matched the tension building inside Ji-eun. Dark clouds had rolled in over Seoul by mid-morning, threatening rain. Su'A, now moving with much more confidence, had insisted on one small outing. "I want to see the place where it happened," she said quietly over breakfast. "The doctor said confronting it might help the remaining gaps. I want to do it with you." Ji-eun's stomach twisted, but she couldn't find a reason to refuse. An hour later, their driver took them to the winding riverside road where the accident had occurred. The site was quiet, skid marks still faintly visible on the asphalt. A section of guardrail remained bent and scarred. Rain began to fall lightly as they stepped out of the car, soft droplets pattering on the umbrella Ji-eun held over both of them. Su'A stood very still, staring at the damaged railing. Her breathing grew shallow. "I remember," she whispered. Ji-eun's heart hammered. "Su'A, maybe we should go back." "No." Su'A's voice cracked. She pressed a hand to her temple. "We were fighting that morning. You said you had already signed the papers, that you wanted a divorce. I was angry, distracted. That's why I crashed. Fragments were returning faster now." Su'A's eyes widened with dawning horror as more pieces locked into place. The cold silences, the arguments about family expectations, the growing emotional distance, the night Ji-eun had slept in the guest room. She turned to Ji-eun, face pale and devastated. "It wasn't a nightmare. You were really going to leave me." The rain fell harder. Ji-eun felt her world tilt. Tears mixed with rainwater on her cheeks. "Yes," she said, voice breaking. "I signed the papers the night of your accident. I thought I was finally free. But then you woke up and looked at me the way you used to, and I couldn't tell you. I couldn't break your heart while you were fighting to recover." Su'A staggered back a step, hand still pressed to her head. "So everything these past weeks, the cooking, the trips, the way you held me, it was all pity? A performance?" "No." Ji-eun stepped forward desperately, but Su'A flinched away. "At first, maybe I stayed because of the doctor's warnings, but then I fell in love with you all over again. The real feelings never went away, Su'A. They were just buried under all the pain and pressure." Su'A's shoulders shook with silent sobs. The woman who had been glowing with renewed love just hours ago now looked utterly shattered. "I trusted you," she whispered. "I gave you every piece of my heart again, thinking we were healing, and you let me believe we were happy." Ji-eun reached for her, tears streaming freely now. "I'm so sorry. I was scared of losing you, scared of hurting you. I never stopped loving you, not once." For a long moment, the only sound was the rain. Then Su'A spoke, voice raw and exhausted. "I need space. I need time to process everything that's coming back, all the good memories and the painful ones." She turned and walked back toward the car, leaving Ji-eun standing alone in the rain. Back at the penthouse, the silence was deafening. Su'A packed a small bag with trembling hands. "I'm going to stay at the family apartment for a while. I can't look at you right now without feeling everything at once." Ji-eun stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, watching the woman she loved prepare to leave. "I understand," she whispered. "But please know this wasn't all a lie. The way I held you, the way I kissed you, none of that was fake." Su'A paused at the elevator, eyes red and swollen. For a second, it looked like she might say something more. Instead, she simply nodded once and stepped inside. The doors closed. Ji-eun sank to the floor the moment the elevator descended, sobs racking her body in the empty penthouse. The truth was finally out, and it had broken everything. The penthouse felt like a tomb without Su'A in it. Ji-eun moved through the days on autopilot. She returned to the firm with a vengeance, burying herself in case files and late-night strategy sessions. Colleagues whispered about her intensity, but no one dared ask why her eyes were perpetually shadowed. Work was safe. Work didn't require her to confront the gaping hole in her chest. Meanwhile, Soo-ah had retreated to the family's private residence on the outskirts of Seoul. Ji-eun only knew this through occasional updates from mutual friends. She didn't call, she didn't text. She respected the space Soo-ah had asked for, even as every fiber of her being wanted to beg for forgiveness. Nights were the hardest. Ji-eun would lie awake in their too-big bed, replaying the real reasons they had been heading for divorce. Flashback 10 months ago. Soo-ah had come home from another grueling board meeting, shoulders tight with the weight of expectations. "They want us to start thinking about children soon," she had said wearily. An heir, public appearances, the perfect Park family image. Ji-eun, exhausted from her own high-stakes litigation, had finally snapped. "What about what I want? I feel like I'm losing myself here. I'm not just an accessory to the Park name, Soo-ah. I'm lonely. We barely talk anymore. We barely touch. This isn't the life I said yes to." Soo-ah had retreated behind her walls, the cool, composed heiress mask slipping into place. You knew what you were marrying into. The fights had grown more frequent after that. The love was still there, but it had been drowning under layers of resentment, family control, and unspoken needs. In the quiet of her temporary apartment, she couldn't bear staying in the penthouse alone. Ji-eun finally admitted the truth to herself. The problems had been real. The loneliness had been crushing. But so was the love. She still loved Park Soo-ah, deeply, messily, completely. Across the city, Soo-ah was struggling too. Full memories returned in waves, some beautiful, some painful. She remembered the way Ji-eun used to make her feel seen. She also remembered the nights she had cried alone after arguments, the pressure to be the perfect daughter and wife, and the fear that she was losing Ji-eun long before the accident. One rainy afternoon, Soo-ah stood at the window of the family residence, staring out at the grey cityscape. Her best friend, Haewon, sat nearby. "You still love her," Haewon said gently. Soo-ah didn't deny it. "I do. But she lied to me for weeks. How do I trust that again?" 3 weeks after the accident site confrontation, Soo-ah appeared without warning. It was late evening. Ji-eun was still at the office, reviewing documents under the harsh glow of her desk lamp, when her assistant buzzed through. "Mrs. Park is here to see you." Ji-eun's heart stopped. Soo-ah stepped into the office, looking thinner, more tired, but still devastatingly beautiful in a simple black coat. She closed the door behind her. They stared at each other across the room for a long moment. "I've been remembering more," Soo-ah said quietly. "The good and the bad, the reasons we were falling apart, and the reasons we fell in love in the first place." Ji-eun stood up slowly, hands trembling. "I'm so sorry, Soo-ah, for all of it, for lying, for almost walking away, for not fighting harder for us before." Soo-ah took a hesitant step closer. "I was angry, I still am, but I also realized something. Even with all the pain, I kept choosing you, and when I woke up in that hospital and saw you, my heart chose you again without hesitation." Tears welled in both their eyes. Soo-ah stopped a few feet away. "I'm not ready to come home yet, but I needed you to know the love was real. It still is, even if we don't know what to do with it right now." Ji-eun nodded, voice thick. "I'll wait, as long as you need." Soo-ah gave her one last lingering look, full of love, hurt, and fragile hope, before turning and leaving the office. The door clicked shut. Ji-eun sank back into her chair, pressing a hand to her mouth as quiet sobs escaped her. They were no longer pretending, but they were still apart. The call came late one evening, almost 4 weeks after the accident site. "Hey, it's me." Soo-ah's voice was quiet on the line. "Can we meet, just us? I think I'm ready to actually talk." They chose a small, quiet cafe with a garden terrace on the edge of the city. When Ji-eun arrived, Soo-ah was already sitting at a corner table, fingers wrapped tightly around a mug of tea. She looked tired but determined. They sat in silence for a minute, the weight of everything between them. Soo-ah spoke first. "I've been remembering a lot more," she said, staring into her tea. "The fights, the way I'd come home late and just shut down, how you started sleeping in the guest room sometimes. She looked up, eyes glassy. I hated how it felt, but I also get why you wanted out. I made you feel like you were just part of the park machine. Ji-eun swallowed hard. Yeah. It got really lonely. I'd come home and you'd be on conference calls until midnight, or your mother would call and suddenly our plans disappeared. I started feeling like I was losing myself, like I was just Han Ji-eun, the lawyer who married the heiress. Her voice cracked. I loved you so much, but I was so fucking tired. Sua nodded slowly, a tear slipping down her cheek. I know, I saw it happening and I still didn't stop it. I was scared that if I pushed back against my family, everything would fall apart, so I pushed you away instead. She let out a shaky breath. I'm sorry, I really am. I'm sorry too, Ji-eun whispered, for lying to you after the accident. I was scared you'd break, and then I got scared of losing what we had again. It was selfish. They talked for nearly 2 hours, halting, sometimes painful, but honest. No grand declarations, just two people laying their wounds on the table. I don't want to go back to how we were, Sua said eventually. If we do this, we do it differently. Therapy, real boundaries with my family, actual time for each other. Ji-eun reached across the table and took her hand. I want that too. No more pretending everything's fine when it isn't. The Park family did not make it easy. 2 days later, Chairwoman Park summoned them to the family home. The tension in the formal sitting room was thick. You've only just recovered, the chairwoman said sharply, looking at Sua. And now you want to rush back into this, after everything that happened? Sua's grip on Ji-eun's hand tightened. Mars, this isn't rushing. This is me choosing the person I love. Ji-eun isn't going anywhere. We're figuring this out, whether you approve or not. The chairwoman's eyes narrowed, but Sua didn't back down. For the first time in a long time, she held her ground. That night, as they left the estate, the sky broke open. Rain poured down heavily. They ran toward the parking area, but stopped halfway across the courtyard, both of them soaked within seconds. Sua turned to her suddenly, breathing hard. I'm still scared, she said, voice raw over the sound of the rain. I'm scared we'll mess it up again. Ji-eun stepped closer, cupping Sua's wet face with both hands. Me too, but I'd rather be scared with you than without you. Sua's eyes searched hers for a moment, then she pulled Ji-eun in. The kiss was desperate and messy, rain mixing with tears, hands clutching wet clothes, months of pain and longing pouring out between them. Sua kissed her like she was afraid Ji-eun might disappear, and Ji-eun kissed her back with everything she had. No perfect words, just need, forgiveness, and the fierce decision to try again. When they finally broke apart, foreheads pressed together, both were smiling through the downpour. I love you, Sua whispered, voice hoarse. I love you too, Ji-eun answered, for real this time. 1 year later, the Jeju beach was quiet at sunrise, waves gently lapping at the shore under a soft pink sky. A small group of close friends and family stood on the sand, Min-ji wiping happy tears, Haewon smiling warmly, even Chairwoman Park present, though still a little stiff. No lavish chaebol spectacle, no cameras, just the people who mattered. Ji-eun stood barefoot in a simple white linen suit, heart full as Sua walked toward her along the petal-strewn path. Sua wore a flowing ivory dress that caught the ocean breeze, her hair loose and glowing in the morning light. The bruises and scars from the accident had long faded, but the growth between them remained visible in the way they looked at each other. This time, the vows were different. Sua spoke first, voice steady and warm. Han Ji-eun, I fell in love with you once in a whirlwind. Then again, while I had forgotten everything except how much my heart needed you. And now, knowing all of it, the beautiful and the painful, I still choose you, every day. I promise to fight for us, to listen, to make space for your dreams alongside mine. You are my safe place, my partner, my love. Ji-eun's eyes shimmered as she took Sua's hands. Park Sua, I almost walked away because I was scared and tired. But even in the middle of the hardest lie I've ever told, I couldn't stop loving you. You are my greatest joy and my deepest lesson. I promise to be honest, even when it's hard, to build a life that belongs to us, not to expectations. I choose you, consciously, completely, forever. They exchanged new rings, simple bands engraved with tiny waves, symbolizing both the storm they had weathered and the steady ocean they now sailed together. When they kissed, it was soft, lingering, and full of quiet joy. Their friends clapped and cheered as the sun rose higher, painting the sea in gold. Later that afternoon, back in their newly remodeled beach house, a compromise between Ji-eun's desire for simplicity and Sua's love for beauty, they stood on the private terrace overlooking the water. Sua wrapped her arms around Ji-eun from behind, resting her chin on her shoulder. "No more amnesia needed," she murmured. Ji-eun laughed softly, turning in her embrace. "Third time really is forever." They had changed, both of them. Therapy sessions together, new boundaries with the Park family. Ji-eun had made partner at her firm on her own terms, while Sua had begun shifting toward more philanthropic roles within the company, carving out space for the life they actually wanted. There were still hard days. Old patterns sometimes tried to creep back, but now they faced them together, honestly, with open hearts. As the sun began to set, they walked hand in hand along the beach, waves washing over their feet. Sua squeezed Ji-eun's hand. "Thank you for staying, even when it was messy." Ji-eun lifted their joined hands and kissed Sua's knuckles. "Thank you for choosing me again." In the golden light, the corporate lawyer and the chaebol heiress, two women who had lost and found each other more than once, finally stepped into the future they had chosen.